Hey, we're back. This is your average esports podcast, episode 33. And with me, as always, is Skim from Complexity. And today it should be a shorter show, I imagine, because not too much has gone on. But we'll go over one big event and then one small event in Dota 2 and CSGO. So in CSGO, we had Blast Madrid. And at Blast Madrid, basically, ends and refreshes tournament. The, the Astralis era, or the Age of Astralis, is over. Ents have beaten their nuke streak and then beat not Astralis in the finals to take that tournament. So let me ask you, Skim, which one of those do you want to talk about first? Ents beating Astralis or Astralis Astralis's era just dying like this?
I think Astralis' era dying like this because we kind of talked about this in the last episode too, right?
Yeah,
The fact that they have been sort of neglecting the big events and then just focusing on these blast events, which I mean, ultimately everybody can choose whatever they do, but like I think pretty much everybody's been pointing out they're risking their own legacy and their own era with this, right? They could continue to be the undoubted number one, but now they're like dodging all these big high-profile events. They're only playing these small events, and they're doubt to slip up at some point, and it just happened. Like they just fucked up.
yeah, they fucked up twice. The other Blast event, they didn't make it out of the group stage, and then
Yeah,
this one, they lost the finals. So I guess we'll talk about it here. First off, like by here's the thing, right? If you look at here's the definition of what I consider an era is you know the term bonjour from StarCraft?
I do not.
Okay, so bonjour basically means like the one player above the rest, or like the one who stands above all others. And in order to get this like title in Korea, you have to be the best for a prolonged period of time to the point where like it's to the point where like everybody recognizes the fact that you're like a step above, right? And that's the thing about bonjour hood is like it's not a really set definition, but part of the definition is that you have to win over a long periods at a time, and there can't really be breaks in between your dominance, not really. And that's kind of the problem I have with Astralis is basically like here's the thing: if you look at some of the old eras, specifically Fnatic, and you actually look at the way their era is constructed, it goes from I think uh was it like from 2014 to 2015, and it ends a bit after ESL Cologne when they win their second major, right? But if you actually look between ESL Cologne and then their previous victory between them, it's actually a decent gap, like a few months and then like multiple events in between. But in those multiple events, they went to all the big ones and they still kept getting like top four, finals, third, or whatever. So the point I'm making is if Astralis had continued to attend these events, and they didn't even need to win them, they just needed to place very well, top four, third, second, they'd still be in contention to keep their era going if they won, like, let's say the next two big events. But because they skipped all of the big events, didn't attend any of them, they don't have any of the continuity needed to extend their era farther than it could have gone. And so basically they've ended their era by not fighting at all. And I don't know if you saw this tweet from me, but basically I just quoted Daigo Umehara's thing, where it's where like if you're like the best player in the world, it's really fucking lame to go out by not fighting. Like it's
Yep,
super lame. Like it's better to
it's
die
mega
on the
lame.
battlefield than it is to hide in your castle and just pretend you're the best. And that's kind of how I feel about Astralis during this blast period. Is like, well, you just gave it up. You didn't fight it out like Fnatic. You didn't fight it out like NIP. You didn't fight it out like LG slash SK. Like this is probably the lamest way any era has gone out.
And it's really sad because they started to build something that was going to be like the biggest legacy, maybe esports in general.
Yeah, it could have been the
Um,
biggest in esports
it could have
ever,
been. It could
right?
have been.
Like it's already the best. It's already the best era in CS:GO, but it's just such a terrible way to go out. Oh,
No,
so
the
it's
question the
go ahead.
question now is to me anyway is like are they going to continue doing? Let's imagine they win the next major. It's just like how they're going to continue doing this. It's just like basically effectively only playing the major every season. Instead of like actually being part of the tournament pro circuit.
I mean, they're going to some events, but I kind of know what you mean. Like, it's just such a shitty way to go. Like,
It really is, and especially if some of the events that they could do go to, they bomb out in this Blast Pro Series, or they just lose to ends in the finals or whatever. It's like, I mean, if you go to Reddit, I know Reddit is not necessarily the best place to have discussions, but there's like a lot of like concerned fans, like, hey, I'm an Astralis fan, but at the end of the day, what do I get out of being an Astralis fan if they don't play any goddamn tournaments, right?
mm-hmm.
And that's just like, I don't know. Not only is it sad for their legacy, it's also just like
Sad
sad in
for
general
it's just
for
sad for the
everybody
fans,
involved.
the community,
Yeah.
yeah, all the hardcore people. I guess I'll spoil it now because I don't know when it's being released, or even if it's being released. But I wrote an article basically saying the Blast Pro series is like the fast food of CS:GO events. Like,
It kind of is, yeah.
and
It
like
kind of is.
not only is it like unsubstantial on its own, but it's like literally ruining the entire tournament, the entire tournament circuit by itself too. So
I will say, again, for local fans, I think it's really cool to have a high stakes, or not a high stakes, but rather having a tournament with a lot of top teams attending, because ultimately there are like 2, 3, 4 top teams at every Blast Pro Series, right? You have like Navi, Astralis, Nip, whatever.
MIBR,
Phase was also at the
Phase.
last one.
Yeah.
So it's kind of cool for local fans. I get why there's still people going to them, right? And this is why like they're selling out and all that stuff. If there was a Blast Pro Series in my city, I'd probably go to that too. But I think the online viewership might, like, if there's ever 2 events at the same time, I guarantee Blast will not outperform the other tournament.
Yeah, I just in general think Blast is like a fraud. It's like close to a fraudulent event. It's like it's on the edge for me at this moment. It's like, because I think CS:GO is similar to Dota2 in the sense that it's a best of 3 game. It's not a best of 1 game. So, all right. The other point I want to go into is
sorry, but right. just to add on to that, and yeah, I think this is really unhealthy for CS, because it might give tournament organizers the impression, or it might cause some of these events to be like, hey, maybe we should just do like a format like this. No, this is not a competitive format. I think it's like, I know what they're designed to be, but they're not competitive. Like, that's not what they're designed to be.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason. Like, there's a reason why like the worst game of, I'm gonna go. At some point, I'm probably gonna make an end of year's award just to give this award the worst game of the year to Liquid versus ENCE. And the reason it's the worst game of the year is because Blast didn't let it go into overtime. Like, that's literally the worst reason. It's the worst game.
Oh, I remember.
Because that was supposed to be the rematch of the majors, man. It was gonna be sick.
And then Liquid advanced because they just needed a tie or something, right?
Yeah, and since you don't play overtime, it's so fucking lame.
Yeah,
so fucking lame. But yeah, going on to ENCE now. So ENCE won this event, right? And I don't know how much of the ENCE run you saw. Like, you don't actually need to see much of it, but did you see the finals?
I saw one game of the finals.
Was it Nuke or was it Train?
It was not Nuke. It was Train.
All right, so I guess I can explain it a bit, because ENCE is a fairly interesting team. Like, a lot of people compare ENCE to Astralis, like, or as a lesser Astralis almost, because ENCE is an incredibly structured team. But they do have some notable differences, which is why I think the ENCE came out on top here. Well, first off, I guess, in the case of Astralis, their players never really warmed up. And if you look throughout their runs at bigger events, this is a team that generally like ramps up as they go from stage to stage. But because it's a Blast event, they only have 2 days, and they don't ramp up in that speed in that like little short window of time like they usually do. And then the other thing to note is like Ariel is like had a career best performance here. He basically just smashed Astralis in terms of aggressive picks on both maps, CT side or T side. So that was always something that was really bad for Astralis. But the other thing I want to note is basically when you look at the structures of the team, ENCE use a lot more aggressive structure compared to Astralis. I guess that's the way I'd put it. Like, the way Astralis do it, they usually play by numbers, and they play through trades, and and it's all very smart. It's all very calculated, but they don't take more aggressive positions, and they don't like create. They don't use their utility to create aim duels, whereas Ents are way more likely to do that, and they usually use it with Aerial, Alu, and sometimes Sergei. And this like high pressure style basically just stole all of the space away from Astralis. So just tactically speaking, Astralis was always like a step behind in terms of the head to head against Ents. So that's how I saw that matchup. Did you see anything you want to
No,
talk about?
that's pretty much the way I saw it too, and I think that's why in my book, like, I mean, Astralis' playstyle in my book is just more sustainable long term because I
Mm-hmm.
think Astralis is just like it's more well rounded. So no matter
Yeah.
which opponent you face, you're generally always going to be
Yeah.
you're always going to perform well, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no like matchup where like, oh god damn it, like we're unsuited against this particular team. Like yeah, it kind of worked for Ents this time around, but like it's a lot of high risk too. It's very volatile. It also very much relies on your players to just be on at all times,
Mm-hmm.
or in most cases anyway. Whereas Astralis is like, even if one of our players isn't on, like the way they play, they make up for each other's faults as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, I feel like that's so much more sustainable and generally just. I mean, this is why every team almost like strives to be like Astralis, right? Because that's just such a like they just have such strong fundamentals and they're just like such a good team. There's just so much that you want to copy from that team. Whereas like, and it's like, yeah, it's a cool playstyle, but you can't really. It's not like a playstyle you generally want to copy because you almost can't unless you have like really the ideal players to do that. Whereas
Mm-hmm.
Astralis, there's a lot of things that you can take away from and just like, all right, this is something we can adapt. And a lot of teams have adapted a lot of the things that Astralis has been doing.
Yeah.
Um, so that's my takeaway really from that matchup. It's like, yeah, cool, it worked for Ents. In like 10 matchups, probably they win like 2 to 3, maybe in a best of three. But
Like,
generally speaking, Astralis still probably has the upper hand.
yeah, in general, I agree with you. The only question I have right now is Dupree and Glaive. And what I mean by that is both of them have fallen down since the AUG meta has come into play. And here's the thing I didn't talk about when I was describing Ents. They are really fucking good at using the AUG. I mean,
Yeah.
really fucking good. And I don't just mean like aim duels, because everybody takes aim duels. What makes Ents so funny is like, all right, there's a round I think in on Dust 2 when they played against Astralis in Dust 2, and on their CT side, Alu gets an early pick in the middle against Device, I think, and then so they run the timer down, and they just play and Ents play a default round, a default setup, so three at A, two at B. But what makes Ents' like round so funny is because Astralis was running really slow on the timer, they just took the three longest angles possible. So they had one guy in pit, one guy at goose, and then one guy at car. And so the only way, and because like two of them had Augs and the third guy had an op, the only way Astralis could win that was by getting headshots. Because they can't, because like a normal trade, you need like some kind of spray, but because of the ridiculously long distances that are enabled by the AUG, they couldn't do anything. So,
No, and this is something that I think not just for Ents, but like a lot of or there's a couple of teams out there right now that you can really tell they've totally like fully embraced the AUG, and this is I like I know this is kind of off topic, but this is pretty much in my opinion why Valve implemented the AUG in the first, or why they buffed the AUG in the first place,
mm-hmm.
and then like retracted the buff, because like I'm pretty sure they've been sitting there for months and be like, guys, AUG is actually a really good weapon. You
Yeah.
just need to test it out.
Mm-hmm.
It's not necessarily. I know some teams just run it like whenever they can, but it's not necessarily a weapon that you have to run every time you can. But when you can play to its strength, like you just highlighted, like it's such a good weapon. It's just I feel like a lot of, especially like the old school teams, they haven't really embraced it. Like some of the old school players, they haven't really embraced it.
All the phase, the all-star
Well,
team.
all of face, yeah, all of face is like, nah, Og, I ain't running that shit. Nico was even trash
That's for
talking it
fucking noobs.
on
Shox is
Twitter.
like,
Yeah,
this has no artistic talent. Fuck this gun.
yeah. I mean, I kind of get where they're coming from, but at the same time, like you said again, if you look at the use cases that you can like, where you can really like capitalize on this weapon, like
Like,
I find that both strategic and artistic, honestly.
here's another thing that's funny is I don't know if it just ends, but ends is the first team I noticed it. Like, if they're on the T side on Dust 2, and somebody drops an AUG, like X7 will pick it up, and then in the and then the a reason he does that is because he at the beginning of the next round, if he gets the right spawn, he can just run to long and take an aim duel against anybody because of the AUG. I just thought that was really funny. But yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you for the most part. Like I think the AUG was always pretty good. It's just like nobody realized it was good until like the buff, right? The price
Pretty
buff.
much, yeah.
But what's funny about the nerf was like the nerf came at the same time as the economy changes, so it didn't really matter.
That's also true. That's
Yes.
also very true.
But like I don't necessarily know what exactly Valve is thinking with the economy changes, because like that's like its own separate issue. Like because of the way the counter works, like if you lose like 7 rounds in a row or 8 rounds in a row, your economy is secured for the rest of the half.
Which is incredibly stupid. I know a lot of people have already been complaining about this, and rightfully so. Like this is not how the game should be played.
Yeah,
It should really be capped at 5.
like it's kind of like the rubber band effect, except worse.
Yeah, no, 100%.
Yeah, and then here's the last thing I'll talk about. Ents specifically Alexa B, because I think he's actually one of the best in-game leaders in the world. And the reason I think this is because he's starting to play what I call like the long game. And what I mean by the long game is he's strategizing rounds like 3 or 4 rounds in advance. So the first time I noticed this was at the major against Navi. And on their T side on Train, what they did was they ran execute 3 times in a row, same nades, but they made what they did was they had a player at Ivy in the first two executes. And the reason they had a player at Ivy was so like if they lose, they know that Navi know there was a player at Ivy, right? And then
right.
in the third round where they run the exact same execute, they just had everybody come from T-Con and Pop Dog. And this was the third round. Basically, they were just grinding Navi down, and the whole point of that was Navi in that execute just assumed, rightly so, that there was going to be a player from Ivy they had to take out first before they could focus on the main execute. So that's why on the third round, on the third go ahead, just Ents beat them straight out in that moment. And this is something I noticed back then, and it's something that's continued now. So like another round that's really here's like something really subtle I didn't notice until the rewatch, but like if you look at Train, in the first 5 rounds, Sergey doesn't use a molly to ever contest Pop Dog in the early game, and instead what Alexi B calls is for really early aggression from Pop Dog and T-Con behind the utility usage. So that's what I mean by like high pressure structured aim duels from Ents, right? And then they do that the first 5 rounds, and then in the 6th round, they in the 6th round they kind of pull back from that, and then they let the assumption I think they're working on is if you don't like go aggressively like that, Astralis will take Pop Dog, and that's exactly what they did. And then Sergey instantly like countered it. He just threw the molly down, forced them back, and then forced them back. A flash came over the top of outer, blinded Dupree, and then another player came out and traded Dupree, and then they were up in a 5v4 situation, right? And basically, like Alexi B does this again and again and again throughout the entire like series. So I don't know if this was specifically for this type of event, because there's way less games and most of the maps beforehand, or if this is just like something specific about Alexi B as like in-game leader, where he's able to create this long game in his calling. So just something really interesting I thought from that particular.
It's a good note. I'm gonna keep track on that next time I'll watch that. But that's a good call. And I mean, generally speaking, I don't think it can be a top team in the world without having a good leader. Or at least somebody who's able to recognize the game for what it, or to read the game.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, Ents is right now like a top 4, top
5 team.
Yeah. So props to him.
Yeah. All right. Moving on to the next topic. Adren is out of phase. Neo is in. What do you think of this?
Well, I think it was obvious that with Adren, or to me anyway, with it. I mean, yeah, sure, they won that event, but
Yeah, the
that's
Blast
Blast.
event,
Like I
Blast
don't,
Miami.
yeah, I don't care about that.
Hmm.
Um, I mean, even when they got him, I was like, I don't think this is necessarily the solution. It is a little bit funny that they lost their first match with Neo
Hmm.
against Virtus Pro of all teams.
Hmm.
I know it's their first match, and I'm not holding them against and not holding it against them, but it's just really funny. Um, yeah, I don't know. I think this is good. Whether or not it's really the solution that they've been looking for, I really don't know. But I mean, at least now they have an actual in-game leader again.
Yeah, that's like I think I said this at some point, but basically, it's not the optimal solution. Like if you were asking me what the optimal solution was, I'd say you try to get Fallen. Maybe I think Fallen might work, or if you couldn't get Nitro because Nitro's on a better team, but like Chris J maybe something weird like that. But like it's not the optimal solution, but like they did need a leader, so it's technically a step in the right direction. My only question for this squad right now is if they'll give him the time. And what I mean by that is like you need to give him like 1 to 2 months. You need to give him like 1 to 2 events at least to see if he can implement his system or not. Like I don't want this to go down to another Cloud9 FNS route where it's like, yeah, we got him and we gave him 3 days of practice and then we kicked him out. Like what a fucking waste of time.
6 weeks later, nah, maybe we'll go a different route after all. We didn't really test him, but we already know that's not working.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
complete waste of time. So
no, I agree. Yeah, I don't know. Again, um, I don't think this is the ideal solution, and I agree with you that. But again, at least they have a leader now. Like I said, if they, I mean, what's the major? It's like in July, right? They
yeah,
have a solid amount of time left. I feel like there's even like unless they decide to swap it out in like 2 weeks, there's no matter what replacement they get, it's not gonna be on time anyway. So they might as well stick to him.
mm-hmm.
If that makes any sense.
Yeah,
So yeah, I think this was a good sort of like short-term solution. At the very least, it can alleviate a lot of pressure from Nico to call, and that alone could help. If that
I
makes
mean
any sense.
Nico's already a fucking sick player even when he was calling.
Well,
So,
I know. I'm just saying.
but I guess he can dominate even more now. Like I already thought he was the second best player in the world outside of Simple. So yeah,
Pretty much. It's unfortunate. Well, I say unfortunately, but there used to be a lot more competition, but Coldzera has been not
he's been
that hot.
trying to fight back, but he
Yeah,
isn't close to that level anymore.
unfortunately.
Yeah, so
And then I mean, all of Meister's like
gone.
gone.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like there are like some points where he looks kind of back-ish, but not yet. And he even when he was at his best in phase, he was never in like that category of top player. So yeah, I think it's just a huge generational shift right now in CS:GO. I think like guys like Twist are coming up, taking over.
Twist is definitely a not necessarily for like it's look with Simple in the picture. It's basically impossible to really be the best player in the world right now
Yeah,
because
but if
like
Simple
Simple
didn't
is just
exist, he could be the best player in the world.
if Simple didn't exist, I think Twist would be a hot contender.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, players like that are coming up. So we'll see how that goes. I also think like a Legion Naf are really fucking good. I think that Liquid squad is ridiculous, to be honest. But yeah, moving on, starting Dota 2. So MDL major finished, and I personally think this was the best major we've had this season.
Yeah, like game quality alone, like I think there were a couple of Reddit threads like 3 days before the finals, like, oh, this is some of the best Dota I've seen like all season long, and like some of the sickest Dota ever. Like, no, this had so many great games, so many great matches. It's like it's kind of sad because there's so many great matches that you can almost like. It's almost
Each one is
they
its own
almost
little story, isn't it?
yeah. And there's so many stories in this as well. Like, look, I know. So obviously, as somebody that works for Complexity, I look at the lower bracket round two, and I'm like, look, there's LGD, VP, Liquid, and Vici Gaming in the lower bracket round
You were
two.
fucked whoever you drew.
100%. So somebody said to us, "This like, oh yeah, you drew like the easiest." I'm like, who's the easiest draw here? There's like 4 teams that have placed top 4 in the last 2 majors. right?
Yeah.
All four of them have been top four in the last two majors. And I was like, all right, or like obviously not at the same time and not at both majors, but you know what I'm saying. Like these teams are teams that at any given moment could be a top four team again, could even win the title, have won titles in the past. I'm like, how is this a good draw? And it just kept getting better and better. And honestly, I think if NIP have a better day, they probably even beat LGD.
They were
Um,
fucking close, weren't they?
I know, and that's to me it's a sad part because I think NIP they wanted more out of this after they beat Vici Gaming. I think after they beat Vici Gaming, I think there was a lot more in the cards for them than they ultimately got.
They almost beat EG, so
Exactly, they almost beat EG, they almost beat LGD. Like it's so unfortunate for them because I kind of wanted to see how far they can go, especially against Secret, because they've beaten them online. I know that doesn't mean much, but you know, so yeah, a little bit unfortunate.
yeah.
And then the same with or not the same, but similar with OG. I think they had a really tough draw in Liquid and Secret,
Mm-hmm.
two teams that feel really comfortable against them or that know them really well. And I'm
But
pretty sure
here's the
OG
problem with
draws
that like line of reasoning. Like
it works
4 or
both
5 of
ways.
these teams are from Europe, man. They're all
Well,
gonna know OG well.
that's also very true. That's very very true. And you know it kind of works both ways too. Obviously OG knows them too, but um, still, I think if they draw like I'm not
EG.
saying they 100%. I'm not saying they 100% win against LGD. I'm not saying they 100% win against I don't know Vici Gaming, VP or whatever.
I think
But I'm pretty
they even
sure
have
if
a better chance against EG, to be honest.
I agree. I think if they draw EG, they probably win that. But you know, it is what it is. But dude, this I don't know. Like, do we want to go through each team? Do we want to go through groups? I don't know. There's so much to talk about here, actually.
All right, so I'll
Um,
start it off with this. Right after TI8 ended, and I looked at the subsequent teams that are being formed. Right, so EG was already a super team. All right, there was one. I actually
right.
thought the secret team was going to be really good, but I didn't think it was going to be this good. I thought Virtus Pro was,
I don't think anybody expected the secret team to be this good.
yeah, but I thought like Secret would be like right up there, top 8 ish. I thought Virtus Pro would be fucking amazing. LGD would be fucking amazing. Liquid would be like around there, top 4 ish. And I thought like NIP was like really like underrated. I guess would be one word, but I thought PPD could do it again, like again, like basically what he did with Optic in a sense.
Right.
Right? So in my mind, and you know, obviously, fucking OG just won the entire thing. So in my mind, I thought if you get like 1 or 2 good Chinese teams, this could potentially be one of the best seasons of Dota 2, right? And it
Yeah,
didn't
we're
pan
pretty
out that
much getting
way.
there.
It didn't pan out that way for
Well,
like the first 3 or 4 majors, because
it didn't, but I mean,
but now it
a lot of
has.
these things just need a time, right? Like
Yeah.
Secret needed a bit of time to find niche. I say needed a bit of time. They placed second in the first major,
Mm-hmm.
then they won the next major, then they placed fourth, and now they won again. So like time meaning, well, they were already a really good fucking team.
Yeah.
NIP, I mean, I've been mentioning this a couple of times. They 100% need a lot of time. I've mentioned this before. Fata transitioning back to mid, and then also what's his face Ace needing a lot of time to. I thought it was pretty obvious that like NIP was gonna get better, but they needed time. I didn't expect them to come out this explosive now. I
Mm-hmm.
thought maybe like the next major, this is where they're gonna strike, but now they look really fucking strong. And then there's well,
All right. Here we'll start with the lowest. I guess start with the lowest
oh
because
sure,
there.
let's go there.
All right. Here. I think you and I have been pretty critical of the Chinese regions, right?
Yes.
Right? And in my mind, I actually like already wrote them off, except for LGD, basically. But for some reason, Vici won one last time. I was like, Jesus fucking Christ, Vici's actually good now, right? And I actually think in a different world, if eHome had stuck together and with this King roster, I think they have like 2 more like bordering top 8 teams.
Yeah.
But we're in this world, right? And this world, there's way too many good teams for them to actually crack into it. Because in general, like when I look at Dota 2 tournaments, I think like in the last like few, basically in this season, I actually thought it was like really obvious in general what teams were going to come out on top after like Secret came out busting the door down, and like you'd only get like top 4, top 5. But in this one, I actually think like from top 8 onwards, anybody could have won.
I think so too. I fully agree with you. Like if these games happen on different days, if there's like different whatever breakfasts for certain players or whatever, I think like any team could have won. Maybe not Virtus Pro. Like Virtus Pro to me feels like
Virtus Pro's losing it, right?
no, it's not necessarily that. It just feels like for them sometimes it's like there's one event where they're like really hot, and then there's another one where like just don't feel like
They don't,
it almost feels like they don't want to play
yeah.
in a sense.
But
And this event, like when they lost against OG in that like what in 40 minutes effectively,
yeah,
it really felt like all right, they didn't really want to play. Like they're not showing up at this event.
mm-hmm.
So that to me they were already like out of that running anyway.
Yeah.
Um,
All right, so let's see here. All right, what do you think of this? What do you think of Vici? Because they won the last one, right? And then they run into
so
Liquid.
I didn't want to say it after that last one. Maybe I did say it actually in an episode,
Fluke?
but like, not necessarily fluke, but like that's sort of like their ceiling, but their floor is also like
Pretty bad.
pretty bad. Like all the problems that I've been talking about this team, they haven't magically gone away just because they won one tournament,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm not saying that this is why they lost this at this event, but generally speaking, a lot of the problems are that their cores don't necessarily mesh super well against with one another, especially against some of the top teams.
Mm-hmm.
And it just like sometimes it works out, sometimes, but just some like often enough.
Like if
it
they
doesn't
get the
work
right
out for them.
heroes in the right meta, ROTK can make it work. That's
Sure,
kind of how I see
but like
it.
exactly, but that's like a lot of ifs in my opinion, in my book, right?
Yeah.
I just feel like a lot of the other teams are so much more flexible. You know, I don't know, maybe just whipping out a bad rider all of a sudden and just owning with them is like it's just not something you see VG Gaming doing.
Mm-hmm.
VG Gaming are, to me are just like the team that like you said, if they get certain heroes in a certain meta in under certain circumstances, they're gonna got them on with it. But that's about it in my book.
Yeah. I will say I found it hilarious when they played against Keen and like fucking ROTK's draft idea was ruin this offlaner's life. Like that is as like that is spreading the hatred. Like he who was banned now bans or
To
something.
be fair, you know, 11 is one of the better team players on the team. He's also one of those players that sort of like needs like a good laning stage as well. Otherwise, he has a tendency to potentially fall off. So I totally get that.
No, I just think it's really funny because basically he
No,
just like
because
told
right.
every Western team how to beat Keen. It's just ban 11.
Um,
Right.
but yeah, just back to Vici Gaming real quick. What was I gonna say? God damn it. I, I I wouldn't necessarily call it a fluke because that sounds so harsh, like their last major win. But to me, it's not a team that's like consistently gonna compete for titles at majors.
Yeah.
Like next major, I wouldn't be surprised if they don't even make top 8. Just
Wouldn't be
based
that
on
surprised if they
matchups.
made top 4 either though.
Yeah, that's true, right? That's what I'm saying. Like their ceiling is pretty high, but
Yeah,
their
like,
floor is also just
like they're
pretty low.
kind of similar to like NIP in the sense they have pretty high variance.
Yeah, pretty much. NIP, like they have had a great performance here, but next tournament they could probably also go out like 9th to 12th or something. So, it's these. I mean, it's not necessarily against these teams. It's also just a testament to how strong some of these teams in the top 8 are.
Mm-hmm.
Like we look at EG. EG is always going to be top 3. We look at Liquid's, a team that we didn't necessarily expect to get this far at this event, right?
Yeah.
But now they're like almost back? Question mark? Are they back? Do we know if they're back? But whether or not they're back, they're really fucking good right now.
Right. So I guess we'll talk about NIP and OG next because I think they're like kind of a similar category, and they both fell out in a similar place. So, tell me what you think about OG returning with Anna.
So I almost feel like I don't deserve to talk about this team because I've been the one that's sort of like not riding the hype train.
Mm-hmm.
You know, everybody's like, "Oh, Anna's back. OG's gonna be like like the best team in the world again." And I mean, I've been trying to keep everybody like chill and be like, "Yo, guys, at the end of the day, their TI1 was 100% a fluke or 100% a miracle. You can that just doesn't like you can't tell me that a team that had 2 weeks of practice suddenly becomes the best team in the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
That just doesn't happen. So their run was a fluke. Can they build off of that fluke or off of what they've learned at that event? Sure, I'm not denying that. But you know, at the end of the day, it was a fluke. It was a miracle run. But now they have shown that the fundamentals that they did have at that event undeniable fundamentals in terms of teamwork and in terms of team dynamic. Otherwise, he couldn't have made that run. They can build off of that, and their ideas still work, and they are still a good team. So that's pretty cool. Ana is still a very legit carry. He has proven that over not only that TI, but even the majors up until then. They're a team to be reckoned with, and I think going forward, I don't see OG as a team that will defend their title at TI,
No.
but I see OG as like a team that has a really good shot of being like a top four.
All right. Here's what I think about OG. I think they're really idiosyncratic. Like I think every one of their players is like has a weird sort of caveat to make them good. Like if you want Anna to be good, you almost always have to get him to like an end game scenario, or like a late game carry or something like that. If you want Thompson to be good, like you have to flip a coin and hope he gets his right hero, like Invoker or whatever. If you want fucking Mad to be good, like you have to he has to like correctly get the like perfect draft for himself, and he doesn't draft for himself, so that's like a very like specific scenario. For JRX to be good, well, actually, I think I think other 5 players, JRX is like the most solid in a sense. Like he should be good in almost every scenario, but like he excels with certain support heroes. And then with No Tail, I think like he's a really weird 5, right?
No Tail is a very weird fire. No, that is something I 100% agree with.
Right. So
It's not in a bad way, but
it's not a bad way, but it's like he's really weird.
Yeah.
Right. And so you put all five of these like elements together. I think it's clear they're better than the sum of their parts, but like each part each part, like basically for this team to win like a championship, like each part needs to excel, and it's like I think it's super hard to do that in terms of strategy or in terms of a draft. So like if this team wins again, like I'm gonna give all credit to basically Seb and No Tail for like drafting their fucking minds out of the universe. Like I think like their like players are so idiosyncratic. Like I think it's gonna be very hard for them to like pull off that shit again.
I agree, and that's why I'm saying I don't see them defending a title at all.
Yeah.
But I think they're good enough, and especially the way they play is like so weird in a lot of ways, where they have like really weird drafts, or they have like really weird heroes and like positions and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Like their strategies are very uncommon in comparison to most other teams at Fields.
Yeah.
So in that sense, I think they can always upset any team at any given time. Like you said, though, I just don't see them like winning another title again. It
Yeah.
just feels like there's so many things that need to fall into place, and this is why last year was 100% a miracle, sort of like fluke run. Again, fluke sounds such like a negative word, but it's like it was such a big.
It was like the biggest miracle I've ever seen in esports. Like, and
Yeah.
I saw MVP win with like 5 slip discs. That's how big this fucking miracle was. Like,
It
come on,
really
man.
was the biggest miracle esports has ever seen, and that's why I think like OG will never, and I'm pretty sure they know it themselves, right? This is not something you can accomplish again. But they can. What they can do is improve as a team and work on some of these mistakes. And I think if you look at the hero pool, it does seem like they are working on some of these mistakes. Like the hero pool is expanding, even though you can still tell that on certain heroes they're significantly weaker than on other heroes.
Yeah.
It is something that they're constantly working on. So
Mm-hmm.
to me, OG is if this progression keeps up, I think they're going to be like a top 6, top 4 team at TI.
Like,
But right now, it's difficult to actually say, "Are you a top 4 team?" when there's like Secret, Liquid, EG, Liquid, LGD, Vici Gaming, Virtus Pro. Like, yeah, it's
too many top 4 teams.
definitely.
All right, and here's the reason I grouped OG with NIP. Besides the fact that they both eliminated at the same time, I think they both have a very similar win condition, which is they have to outsmart the opponent.
Yeah.
Like I think like Seb and No Tail have to outsmart them draft wise, and I think for NIP, PBD has to outsmart everybody. Because I don't think his lineup is nearly as good as his placing was, and his like the performance of this team was. Like I look at this lineup man for man against Secret, against EG, against Liquid, against LGD. Like this lineup was like way overperformed.
100%. And I think you can tell this at these close games that they do have.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of these close games like is are decided by micro decisions across the entire game, where on like minute like very small actions that just lead to, oh, you don't capitalize on the lead you have, or you give away a small lead to the opponents, and all these kind of small things that keep adding up. And then, oh yeah, it looks close, but at the end of the day, if you maybe like even count the amount of mistakes that have been made, you would argue that NIP was actually further behind than they or were closer to, like they shouldn't have been that the game shouldn't have been that close.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it was just because they out strategized them like with big plays on top. Like, yeah, you make small mistakes, but then you make such big plays afterwards that people don't talk about the small mistakes anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if you look at these players, like we're talking about some of the best players in the world still. Like these aren't necessarily top 5 players in their on their position, but I think some of them are like scratching at like top 10 in on their position.
Yeah,
um
like
like when I criticize them, I'm not saying that they're horrible players. I'm just saying that they just, like you said, they just don't necessarily match up to, like, maybe is top 3 mid in the world. Fata is very far away from top 3. Like, he's like almost top 10 mid in the world.
at
Maybe he
best.
is, maybe he is just the 10th or ninth best, but like that's like that gap is so huge
Yeah.
between top 10 and top 3. That's so huge because maybe it's just such a good player, and like you could probably do this with every position too.
Yeah,
So
like
I 100% agree with you. Both OG and NIP, they need to out strategize and outsmart their opponents, but the impressive thing is that they can consistently do that, and
yeah,
this
like
is why PPD is such a goddamn fucking good captain. Like, not only did he do it last time with Optic, again, look at the Optic lineup and look at how many players of that lineup are still relevant today. And then look at this NIP lineup and ask yourself, how many of these players were relevant last season?
mm-hmm.
Um, well, it's kind of a stupid question to ask because a lot of them were actually relevant. But then again, they had masterful captains. Like, oh, 2 of them were captained by Puppy. It's like, oh, cool.
Yeah, like
Um,
here's the way I see it. Like basically, Ace isn't actually. I'll go ahead and say it. Ace is not top 5 like carry material. Not no way.
not right now. He might be in the future, but right now he's just not good enough.
Like I'll take anybody. I'll take a bunch of these top players. Like I'll take Nisha. I'll take Ame. I'll take Miracle. I'll take who else do we have? I'll take Arteezy. Yeah, right.
I mean, like, again,
I'll take Anna over
there's
him too. I'll take Ramses definitely.
Ramses.
Like there's no way he's top 5, and there's reason for that. Is like he's like very idiosyncratic in his own way. So and then your other best player is 33. He is super weird,
He's super weird.
right?
That is the definition of his playstyle.
Right.
He has like the weird heroes that he's really good at, and then even sometimes with the heroes that he's really good at, he's really weird at. He has weird item builds. He's like the Bone 7 of like Dota right now.
He's like Bone 7 except consistent, right?
I mean, and good.
Yeah, and good. And then you have Fada who's like, we pretend he's a mid laner, but like he's still like part off laner, to be honest.
And he, like, it's so weird seeing him play mid lane these days compared to, because when he was mid in Cloud9 and Mouse Sports before that,
He was a completely different mid laner back then.
I would have argued that he was like top 5 at least,
Mm-hmm.
or he was top, not at least, he was top 5, and there were occasions where you could maybe even make a case for him to like compete with the top 3. But like right now, it's just like all over the place. Like some matches he'll be like good and consistent, and they'll like he played really well. But other games will be like, I guess he played mid.
Like
If you just look at his
if I
performance at his
showed you those
farm.
replays without the nameplates, you would not figure out that was the same player.
Yeah,
Right? Like it's just not possible. He's a completely different player now. Like the fact that PPD is making this work in a world where like every let me like literally every team has like a top mid laner, or like a mid laner is one of the focus. He's making this work in a world like that. Like that, he's basically trying to fight his own meta he accidentally created or purposefully created with Arteezy way back in the day, right? Like because everybody's like running. A lot of the teams run their way through mid, and he doesn't. He can't do it anymore. And now he's like he has to go the reverse way. He's like I have to play off carry, I have to play off lane, and he's somehow making it work, right? Like that's fucking insane. Like this is like one of those tournaments that like adds like another like accomplishment to like PPD's great captainship in my view.
I mean this entire season really.
Yeah.
Obviously this is something we see now. It might change after TI, but I think Um, I wouldn't be surprised if this team makes like top 8 at TI, and I think that in itself is a huge accomplishment.
Yeah.
Because again, there's like so many talented and so many skilled teams. We're stacked with very highly skilled players. Where this team like it pales a little bit in comparison, but they still make it work as a team, and that's just a huge accomplishment in itself.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so no, I agree. This team right now is performing better than if you blanked, like you said, if you blanked out the names and just looked at like individual performances, be like, is this really a top team in the world right now? But yeah, it is.
Yeah. All right. Let's go to
Um,
LGD. So LGD actually showed some pretty decent games, all things considered. What do you think of them?
maybe man, maybe an FY are on insane form. I'm not saying that the rest isn't good,
I'm
but
gonna
this
go and
just
say I don't think Ame is that good.
well,
Compared to old
I
Ame, I'm comparing him to himself.
I will say that one of the reasons they lost that finals is also Ame.
Yeah.
Like he's put on some questionable shit in that finals.
Mm-hmm.
And there's been it's funny because I think there was a game against, was it against Liquid? I want to say it was against Liquid.
Yeah.
One of his Monkey King games. Um, no, he even won that one. I'm pretty sure it was against. It was a
What?
Monkey King game they lost. Um,
Um,
and I don't actually can't find it. It might have been honestly
I
the
think it might have
Liquid
been
game. Did they
versus
win?
Secret.
Maybe it was versus Secret. Anyway, and like you just look at his item build and it's like, is this how do you build like what, Midas or something on his or Battle Fury on his Monkey King, and they actually, I guess they still won that.
No, they
I'm
won that
looking at
in spite of him. They won that in spite of him.
yeah.
Like that.
It's like a lot of times there's just like very questionable decisions from Ame where I if I just compare it to Arteezy, who in my book had a really strong performance this tournament.
I think Arteezy
If
is
I compare it
back.
to somebody, yeah, if I compare it to somebody like Arteezy, which I think you have to, because in my book Arteezy is probably the best carry in the world right now, maybe second best. I don't want
I'll
to
take
rate Nisha
Miracle
as
over
a
him, but outside of that, I think it's
probably
close.
Miracle,
No,
probably
I think Miracle's better
Miracle.
than him, man.
Well, I mean, peak performance Miracle is definitely better, I think. But like right now, I think Arteezy's been more consistent this season. So it's
I think
like,
that's because Liquid is like
well,
was
yeah, Liquid,
struggling, which is like a
yeah,
different
Liquid.
issue.
Well, that's true. All right, let's just say he's like a second best carry in the world, right?
Let's just say he has an argument for it at least.
A player like Ame wants to be compared to him though, because you want like Ame is a good carry. Don't get me wrong, but towards that like top tier, like top three, it feels like Ame is just missing. Like every now and then he's just like an off performance where he's just like, is this really Ame playing? Is he like, is he all right? Is he really in the game? And there's just too many of those. I'm not saying that he actually cost his team a couple of games, which again, well, he kind of did at TI.
Yeah, he kind of did.
But this tournament, it wasn't really that big of a factor, I don't think. But generally speaking, it's just, yeah. Sometimes there's like that one game where it's just like, Ame, just why? But then again, you have maybe in FY. It feels like every game they're just like on. FY this tournament, I don't know how many highlight reels this
I
guy
think
wants to add on his
here's the
resume.
thing.
But
Like I think maybe he's really good, but like if I have to compare the two of them, I think FY is the true god between the two of them. Right? FY is like literally carrying their carcasses at some points. It felt like remember that
he
fucking
is
I
that
think it's like that Liquid game. Like he
that
saved
shaker
all of
game.
them.
Yeah,
Not only is he
that
like
game.
saving
That game.
LGD, he's like saving all of Chinese Dota.
That game should have been over like 20 minutes earlier, but maybe FY was like, nah, not with me.
Right? Like fucking FY. Like I think I basically said I think like FY is the best support of all time. Like for certain at this point. He, he basically has done enough in this new LGD squad to like make up for like that period where he wasn't really doing that much, like just jumping around teams. Because this performance is like out of this fucking world. He's straight up the best support player in the world, I think.
I agree. And there's hardly an argument against that, because yeah, there's a lot of other really good support players, and I think if we want to highlight some of those, like I think Yapsor played a really sick
Yeah,
tournament
Yabs were
too.
sick this tournament.
GH was actually pretty good too again. There's
Crit's
definitely
always
there's
pretty solid. Like
I mean, yeah, it's always been pretty solid. Jerix, honestly, Jerix has been kind of pale this season.
yeah,
I
he's not
know,
as good as he used to be.
but generally speaking, like there's a lot of really good support players. But FY just like it feels like every game he is just bringing out godlike performances.
Like
So
basically every game it like I feel like his LGD roster is probably worse than it performed. But the fact that FY keeps going off like this is like what pushes them this far.
It's and same with maybe like he's a top three mid
Yeah,
laner in
same
the
with
world right
maybe.
now.
Like
So if you have these two people, these two players in the same team, it almost feels impossible to have like a really bad performance. If that
yeah,
makes any
like
sense.
I'm just saying, man. If like, well, fuck. The problem with like the Chinese scene right now is I can't think of a good offlaner, a better offlaner than Chalice, and I can't think of a better carry than Ame. But if that guy ever showed up, make that change.
I mean, how would you feel if Paparazzi went to LGD instead of Ame? Honestly, I think Paparazzi
I
is
think
actually really good carry. It's just that
I think that might
on that
work.
team, it's just like not working out.
Yeah, I think that could
Um,
work. But like,
I
would
mean,
would,
it's
would
it's,
these
it's
Chinese
probably
teams
not.
allow that? I don't think
No,
so.
it's not going to work because it's like esports politics.
Yeah,
I know that VG Gaming spent like a shit ton of money on Ori and Paparazzi to make
they've
this
invested so much in those two. Like they will never let them go at this point.
no, they will never let them go. I don't think.
Yeah,
At
they
least
will
not for
literally
like.
die on this hill. We either make them work or we die. Like
Yeah,
okay,
sounds about right.
all right.
Um,
So let's go to the top three. EG, classic third place. What do you think of them?
Feels really bad for them because every time they go into a tournament, it looks like they're really, really strong. Like the lead up to that third place feels really strong every time. Again, Arteezy, I think the season has been one of the best performances from him.
Actually,
I think
I think this season's basically been his best since Old Secret.
since Secret, yeah, since Old Secret, I agree. Like he's been on top of his game. Honestly, if anything, I think Sumail. Like I'm not even saying Sumail's been bad.
No,
Sumail's actually been
I'll go
good.
ahead and say I think Sumail is bad relative to Sumail. I think
Yes,
there's no way he's as good as old Sumail.
that's basically what I was gonna go say. Remember, I think it was Ti before Ti 8, was it, or before Ti 7? There was this one
Before
season where
TR7, before Liquid One. I know what
before
you're talking about.
Sumail was godlike, right?
Where
He
like
was
Sumail
the
was straight up
god.
the best player in the world. Yeah.
He was the best player in the world. He carried his team to like actual even like top finishes and I think even one title or something.
Yeah.
Um, but right now he's just good,
Yeah,
which
he's
is
good.
it's
Like,
just but that's almost not enough. Like we've been talking about how LGD have like two players that are like really insane. Imagine if EG had another player was super insane outside of Arteezy.
I think Crit is kind of close to that level,
Kind of,
but
to
he is.
me,
I wouldn't compare him to FY. That's like the problem.
no, yeah, that's true. Yeah, so no, I feel like if and I mean I guess this has been the age old question in EG. Like, can both Arteezy and Sumail be really super fucking good?
We've never seen it, have we?
We've never seen it, so it feels like now they've traded Sumail's godhood
To
for
Arteezy.
Arteezy's to Arteezy. It's like I don't know, but it's really refreshing to see Arteezy play at this level again. I mean, everybody else is just really solid, so there's not really much criticism, honestly, for this team, except for the fact that they can't just make Arteezy and Sumail work both at the same time. Like I say not work, even though they're consistently
Like
the third best team in the
like
world.
it doesn't. Like the problem with like them not working is like, it's not like one of them is terribly bad. It's just like they haven't reached their ceiling. I
Yeah,
don't know if they
exactly.
ever
You know that both have peaks that are higher than what they're currently at.
will.
You just haven't seen both peak at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's the unfortunate part. Like, you just have to imagine if both peak at the same time, this team is going to win title after title. That's just my assumption. Because if LGD has two gods play at their peak at the same time and they only place fourth, right?
Mm-hmm.
But EG have one god right now, or like one superstar performance, and place third.
Yeah.
You just have to imagine that once both of these are like on their best, that will be a TI championship.
Yeah.
Or anything else. Like you just have to assume. So that's what I'm saying. This has been the biggest challenge for any EG roster in the last 3 years, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody has figured out the puzzle.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, I don't
one
think
who
PBE
could
got
figure out
enough
the
time to
puzzles.
figure out the puzzle. But
I was about to say one who could figure out the puzzle is currently sitting in Stockholm, Sweden, and be like, "Hey, another top 8 again."
Here's the thing: for all the praise we're heaping on EG, and I think they are like legit, like a top 3 team. Like obviously the results reflect that. My problem with them is like the same problem I've always had with them, even dating back to the days where Crit was leading them, is they don't have the old PPD factor. Like, what I mean by that is like they don't strategically adapt through a tournament. I still don't think they do, to be honest. Like, you look at every tournament they've gone third at since, including TI, I guess. Like, it's always the same issue with them. Like, they're super strong throughout the tournament up until they get to that point where like the meta has already evolved past them, and then they're done. Like that's just how I see. That's just how I see EG. Like for whatever reason, like I know Bulba is like a fucking genius, and I know Fly is basically proven himself to be a good captain. There is a step between them and the godhood geniuses like Kuroki, Puppy, PPD, Xiaowei. There's like a step between them. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I think that's like that's your other win condition. If like for whatever reason you're only getting like one godly performance from either Arteezy or Sumail, but like the other guy's still good or still solid, you could still make it to the finals at least one of these times, but they haven't been able to do it. And so I think
No,
that's like another factor you have to think about.
I definitely agree with that. Like, I think one of the big strengths that the old EG had under PPD leadership was when like they always learned from their mistakes and they kept evolving throughout the event, right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the big things for them was they would never lose against an opponent twice at a LAN event. There was like even a statistic I kept tweeting out about because it kept like PPD kept proving me right. It's like EG has gone like I think like 30 LAN matches or whatever, or like more than that actually, without losing to a team twice in best of three. And it's statistics like that that make you just see how strong that EG lineup actually was, because that's impressive. That's an impressive feat, being able to beat opponents, like learning from your mistakes throughout an event and then turning that against the others. And this is something that that the big teams I think have learned at like big championships. Like I think there's only 2 teams or 3 teams in TI history that didn't go through the lower bracket before they won,
Mm-hmm.
and that was
OG.
no. Oh god damn it! Yeah, OG actually. I mean, I guess now it's split down the middle. I think it's like now 4 teams, right? But still, there's like at some point there were a lot of teams that just like went through the lower bracket first, and then they climbed the back way up, and they just defeated their opponent again. I think this is like a feat of a really good team being able to not only stand at the top, but also once you've been knocked down to come back up again and be like, all right, we learned from our mistakes. This is what this is what we did wrong.
And I think I was like specifically a PPD specialty. Like I haven't really, like, I haven't seen it that much with EG enough times to actually say it's like with any of these guys. So
no, it definitely feels like a PPD specialty. And yeah, I don't know. To me right now, I think this is one of the missing ingredients. The whole like you said, like learning throughout this event and like adapting, but at the same time, it's like then also figuring out how these two players work on the same realm.
Yeah, still a fucking good team, all things considered. All right, moving on to
like it's worth highlighting that we're talking about the third best team in the world. No, all memes aside, they've consistently placed third at the best events in the season. They've put on some of the best performances this season. Like this is still like we're criticizing this team on a high level.
Yeah, like basically, like I'm basically criticizing them on the standard that they should be criticized on. This team should win.
This team should win titles.
Not all the time, but at least like one of these 4 times they should have won.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's all I'm saying.
Pretty much.
All right, now let's go to a team that I didn't think it was possible for them to resurrect, but they have. Like Kuroki pulled off a Lazarus. Like basically Kuroki just added, like among all the different feats Kuroki has, this might be one of his best. Is he resurrected a lineup everybody fucking knew how to play against.
So what's really funny about all of this? Like when they've been really shit, right?
Mm-hmm.
I've been thinking, is it maybe because they got rid of Heen as a coach? I've just been wondering, because one of the big differences also, like on top of the lineup, like every lineup has an expiration date.
Mm-hmm.
On top of them potentially being past the expiration date, they also got rid of their coach, right? Or rather, they parted ways, whatever. My question was, or I was just wondering, is maybe the lack of a coach or the lack of Heen specifically as a coach maybe an issue? But now without him, they put on a performance like this where they, I guess you could argue they almost won this event, even though I think Seeker was
I think Secret beat them pretty hard in
very
convincingly.
Very convincingly, I know. It's just they were like second, and maybe on a different day, it's a different story. Yada yada. But generally speaking, this Team Liquid looked really good, really strong, and it
Hmm.
reminded me a little bit of the TI run too. Um, at times. So I was just curious, maybe it's not the coach after all, and maybe just they needed a bit of a break, needed a bit of a refresher, which is honestly fine, all things considered. Ultimately, this lineup has been going strong for like what 2 seasons now, 2.5.
Yeah,
How
like
long ever?
it's been
However long this?
it's been like almost two at this point. It's been a
Oh,
long
almost
time.
2. Yeah, right. It's been a long time. So I understand why they would need a break. Like we give all the praise to Secret, but ultimately they did make significant roster changes this season, so it is a fresh lineup, right? Virtus Pro has been suffering too, and like they've been also together just for over a year now with Roger, and
Hmm.
even longer if you consider the lineup before that. Same with Liquid, I suppose. If you just ignore, or if you just sort of ignore the miracle Fata swap, this lineup has been going strong for
Well, no, you got because you missed the Bulba thing.
ah. No, I choose to ignore the Boba thing.
I think the Bulba thing is
Um,
hilarious, but
it is pretty hilarious. But yeah, the core of this team has been going strong for so long. Same with Virtus Pro, and you see with Virtus Pro, it can tear on you, and like we saw with Liquid, it can tear on you. So I think maybe they just need a bit of a break. Who knows? I think we'll really see where Liquid is at the Epicenter Major.
hmm.
I think that will tell us whether or not this was just a fluke, or if they're really back, or if they're really past the expiration date. Uh,
Yeah,
but ultimately, this was a really strong performance. Miracle, once again, really strong performances. GH, Mind Control. Honestly, everybody's been really strong across the board. I think though, Miracle and GH stand up performance again.
yeah. I think
Actually, I'd almost pick Mind Control over GH
no, I think mind
if I
control is a
had to.
bit better. I think JH is solid. I don't think he's as good as he used to be. But that's like not a throw. That's not like not an insult at him. I think it's just obvious he wouldn't be as good as he used to be because in the old days he could just play coddle and kill people. So
And again, we're like comparing these players to not only their own best performances, but also to like championship, like TI winning performances, right?
yeah.
So it's natural. Like when you say he's not as good as he used to be, it's like yeah, but he's still like a top 5 player in the world on his
Mm-hmm.
position.
Like here's my assumption as to why I thought Liquid was done is because I think like they'd exhausted almost everything that this particular lineup could have done at that point. And what I mean by that is like let's ignore like the fatigue, which was fucking real from the last season because they went to literally every event, right? My biggest problem with this lineup was like not only did they go to every event, they played every fucking team. And so if you do that, like eventually, even if a team is like kind of lazy and doesn't do their homework, they're gonna figure out how you play eventually. And every player you play against is gonna figure out how you play eventually. So all these different players are these other teams they're shuffling, and by shuffling they create like new paths or new ideas or new drafts or new synergies that no team has ever seen before. Because obviously this is like shuffling a deck, right? That's what we call a shuffle. In Liquid's case, we've seen almost everything they've had up to before MDL. So I just like their individual tendencies, how they like to play the map, their general strategy, the drafts, their specific heroes. Like almost everything was exhausted. I thought, but the fact that basically Kuroki made it work again, and not just Kuroki, but like all the individual players, and like you're seeing some of the new stuff coming in this Liquid roster. Like there's like I don't remember a Miracle Naga. Do you remember that? Like I don't remember that. Like, it's
No,
being a thing,
no. To be
right?
to be fair though, Naga in itself has become rather popular going
Yeah,
into this event.
it,
So
it
it's
was
like
pretty
something that
popular,
they
right?
had.
But
It's something they had to adapt to. But I generally agree with you though. Like this Liquid lineup has been like you said, like everybody has sort of like figured out how Liquid play, but at the same time, like I think what made them stand out at this event, it's not necessarily that they had to come up with something new or that they did come up with something new. It's just that they kept on working on perfecting their team play and like their
mm-hmm.
coordination and like tactics and like how they approach the game. It's
Yeah,
just that like it almost similar to like that Alliance Live in 2013. Like yeah, you're gonna know what they're up to, but you can't really prevent it, or you can't really or like you can't really prevent them from doing it. Like they're always gonna out execute you and out strategize you. um, just because they're such a superior team, both in terms of cohesion and coordination, but also then in terms of like execution. And that like felt like Liquid to me. Like it didn't even feel like they had to outdraft their opponents. Like sometimes
Mm-hmm.
I almost think actually in a lot of cases they drafted themselves into a corner where they had to play a specific way in order to win, but they just did it.
Yeah.
They just like, all right, if we have to fulfill these conditions, let's just fulfill these conditions. And they just went ahead and kept winning. And I think this is something that ultimately it's similar to, I mean, I guess it's sort of like similar to Astralis, right?
No, I think
If
I
as long
think
as if as long
the actual comparison, if you're talking about CS:GO team, I think they're Virtus Pro. They're old Virtus Pro, man.
yeah, that's true.
It's like a lineup, a 5-man lineup that's staying together as like almost reliant on its like team play at this point. The only difference between Liquid and Virtus Pro is I think Liquid players are just better man for man compared to that old Virtus Pro lineup.
Yeah, that old Virtus Pro lineup got old really fast.
Like
Whereas these
even in their
Liquid
prime, I
players,
think this Liquid lineup is better than that Virtus Pro lineup, man for man, just in terms of
no, I
raw
agree.
skill.
I mean, you know, if you have Miracle as like one of the best players in the world, GH and Mind Control are pretty young too in terms of like competitive experience. Actually,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like that's a funny thing, right? This entire roster is actually pretty young in both competitive experience but also actual age because a lot of these players when they first started playing with Kuroki, that was literally their breakout.
Yeah,
They haven't had any notable competitive experience beforehand, except for Miracle, who won
who
two
won with
majors with
OG?
OG.
Yeah,
Everybody else, I guess, I mean, obviously Fata at that point and Bulba at that point when they joined, they had experience, but the other players had no notable experience on their resume whatsoever.
yeah. Like they played in smaller teams. Some of them played in tier 2 teams, but
Yeah,
not really much.
and Kuroki made them what they are, and it's that's I think and this is where you know what you mentioned about how you know everybody figured out how they play. Like this is where it's really difficult because a lot of them didn't necessarily have that experience of playing with so many other players together or having all the mixes and matches. So they needed to figure out as a team, all right, what are we going to do from here on out? Like everybody knows how we play. Everybody's like, you know, countering us. Everybody knows how I do certain things, but it just feels like they're like, oh fuck it, we'll just you know let them know. We'll just
How execute?
out execute them. And
Yeah.
I mean, this has always been a strength of Team Liquid in general. I think when they first got picked up by Team Liquid and then when they first got rid of Bulba and had GH, one of their big strengths was being able to um, out execute opponents in the mid game. Like their mid game prowess was something that other teams
Yeah,
try
like
to copy and adapt to, but it's something like there's certain things that you can't just copy. Like
mm-hmm.
communication and like coordination isn't something you can copy. You need to figure it out for yourself. And Liquid is really good at that. And honestly, just based off of that, like again, I don't even think they necessarily outdrafted anybody this event. Whereas like we talked about NIP, OG, I think based on drafts and based on strategy, they
They were basically like second and third. I think only Secret was better, but Secret has like better
yeah,
players. So
pretty much.
mm-hmm.
Whereas Liquid, you know, just based on raw coordination tactics, they're like, oh sure,
Yeah,
we'll play second.
yeah, like it does remind me a little bit of Wings, except not as crazy.
No, they're really not crazy in their drafts. I think their drafts are actually pretty
Like
not necessarily predictable, but they're
no, they're
very
predictable in the sense that
modest.
we've already seen this lineup for so long. We kind of know
That's
how they
true.
think. Like it's predictable in that sense.
It's true.
All right. I think. All right. Last question. I guess. You think this Liquid lineup is going to be consistent top four?
Difficult to say. Again, there's so many top four contenders, but
Right.
generally speaking, if they
Like
like I'm
like I think LGD on a different day might have beaten them. So like, but I guess that's still technically top four. So maybe OG.
it's true. Um I think there will be a top four team at TI. I think they will place top four at TI.
Okay.
I think this is the progression that they can go to. I honestly think they're going to win the next major. The way they come back right now, it feels a little bit reminiscent of last season,
Where
where
like
yeah, they started out
they came back
they
at the
started
end.
yeah they started out strong, then they were like, eh, and then they came back at the end. I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying they started out strong this season, but you know they've had like their phase, and now they're coming back. They're like, all right, guys, TI is coming up. Let's show everybody that you know we're still the big boys, and it honestly feels like they're showing up again. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if they won the next major and then got top 4 at TI, but it's a little bit too early to tell probably.
All right. Last team, the winners of the entire event, Secret and Secret are the new Virtus Pro in the sense that they're straight up the best team in the world, and nobody can touch them.
Straight up the best team in the world. Winning the finals so convincingly, 3-1. It just feels like everybody on their position is super strong. Mid one, I wouldn't even. Mid one is not even the standout player. That's a crazy thing. In previous seasons, when Secret was like one of the top teams, it was usually Mid one being like the top player. But right now, I'd say it's either Zai or Nisha. Actually,
I think Zai is probably their best player, but like that's not. He isn't like a god carry. That's like the thing. Like I feel like Nisha, Mid one, Zai, and Yapso are all really good. Right? Like here's the way I define it. Like if you look at LGD, I know FY is going to have to carry like a madman if LGD want a chance. Like in Secret, I just know like Nisha, Mid one, Zai, and Yapsor just had to do their jobs.
Yeah, pretty much. Like they're all, and you know how we talked about this at the awards, but you know how like the best team in the world, there's like the best players in the world aren't necessarily the best team in the world.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like it's a little bit disingenuous also to say that like all the best players in the world are on the best team, because then you have to wonder, are those really the best players? Because they like, is he really the best carry if the best mid lane and the best offlaner are like doing all the work? Like, can we really call him the best player that can carry like that? But it does feel like with Secret that 4 of these players are like the top, like are like in their respective top 5s, top 3s on their positions.
Yeah.
Like Zai, honestly, in my book, Zai is the best offlane in the world. I don't see anybody.
I think among the 4 players, I think Zai is the only one I'd say is like the number 1 of his position.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Like I want to put Nisha or Mid one in that role.
So. I don't think so either. But the thing is, I think with them, I can confidently say that they're like top 3, and on their positions, or at the very least top 5. I think Yapsor, I mean Yapsor 4 position is always a little bit contested with FY.
No, FY is clearly number 1. Like you have to compare Yapsor to another dude.
I know. I'm just saying, it's difficult to also like even be top 3 when one of those spots is already taken by FY as the undoubted number 1, and then you have so many other top 4s that are contesting for that position. But Mid one I think is, to me, top 3 bid in the world. Not sure if I would put him as the best, but whatever. That's a discussion for end of the year, or end of TI, I suppose. But no, I think with them they have like 4 of the best or most skilled individual players in the world right now.
Yeah,
4 of the most individual skilled players in the world. Zai, to me, undoubtedly best offlane in the world. So, and then you have one of the captains that is contesting for greatest of all time.
Yeah,
if he wins a TI, I think
like basically this fucking major is like a battle between, like, I won't say a battle, but like I guess a battle for like the legacy of who's the greatest leader of all time, because Kuroki, Puppy, and PPD all extended their arguments in this major.
I think with PPD is, or I think his argument is a little bit weak.
Weaker
is because he's still playing with a weaker team.
Yeah,
you can say, oh, it's impressive to go so far with a quote unquote weak team, right? But I mean, that's what's he gonna buy with that?
But here's the thing: if you're comparing him straight up to, let's say, Puppy also had a weak team. He wasn't this good.
I don't know.
In his old lineups,
I mean, he was top 6 with his last team. Which I think was also considerably weaker. I mean, he did have Ace and Fata too, so that was also considerably weaker. He plays the same as Optic last season, so there's that. I don't know.
Optic lineup was way worse, man. Come on. Well, that Optic lineup had your boy CCNC.
Yeah, that's.
You're really gonna compare in the mid one?
Either way, Poppy has now been putting on, like, this season. It's been absolutely impressive how far Secret has come. Or like how impressive Secret has been. And I think if he wins a major now, he's like up there with greatest of all time, maybe even the greatest of all time, considering that in addition to having won 2 TIs, which you could
I don't know if you want to count the first one as that great.
I was about to say, you don't have to give him credit for the first one.
I'll give him credit for the finals against Alliance though.
No, I was about to say he's made 2 TI finals previous to that, so twice with Navi. He's, I mean,
Three
generally,
times with Navi. Didn't he go
well,
against
3.
RG?
Well, yeah, but I'm saying like if we don't count the first
Yeah,
one,
if
you
you don't
know,
count the first one. Okay.
he's been to the finals. Then yeah, 2 times in addition if he wins to this year, and then in general, like he's been what I mean, Navi has been the best team in the West for 2 years in a row. In that time too, he was at the head of that secret team that was the most dominant team. That's the funny thing, right? Team Secret is beating its own record.
Mm-hmm.
The Team Secret right now is the best performing team on LAN that has ever existed in Dota 2. The record before that was Team Secret.
Well, actually, I think
Top.
Virtus Pro would still beat them, to be honest. And the argument for Virtus Pro over this secret lineup, actually, I'd have to check, but I'm pretty sure that Virtus Pro just played a shit ton of tournaments. That's the difference.
Well, yes, the Virtus Pro just played a shit ton of tournaments, which kind of skewed their performances. No, you're right.
Like that's like a different, but that's like a different challenge. Like,
well, yeah.
that's a really different challenge compared to what Secret's doing. So like it would depend on your criteria, I guess.
It's true, but either way, I think if he wins TI, he's in contention for greatest of all time.
At least as a leader.
You'd have
like
at least as a leader.
Like I wouldn't compare him to like Miracle if you're just comparing like as a player. I think Miracle's probably the closest Western player to that title.
I agree.
But like it's complicated because like PPD has like some weird caveats, and so does like Kuroki, and so does YAEP. Like they all have like really weird caveats that like Puppy's technically never done.
I wouldn't necessarily agree to that. I mean, at the
like all right, here's the thing with Puppy. He's never done like the weird double elimination thing that PPD did.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose.
And then the other thing, if you're comparing Puppy directly to Kuroki, where's his lineup that lasted a year and a half, 2 years? Where's his 5-man lineup that did that?
That's also definitely true. Yeah, that's also definitely true. But then you have to ask yourself like, what's more difficult, to repeatedly find success with different lineups or to continuously build success with one lineup?
Well, if that, and then in that third case, I think YAEP kind of won out there. Like he's got the most weird lineups among like the 4, right?
Well, yes and no.
Like that fucking big god lineup and shit. Like YAEP's like really
well,
weird.
True, but that big god lineup that just like was literally one tournament though.
Yeah, like he's done a bunch of like one runs. Yeah, like that nobody else has done.
Newbie technically was also just a one run thing.
Like that's kind of that's like his claim.
No, you know what?
Like this is a really complicated argument to get into.
After TI, that should be a show in itself. That should be a show in itself, I think.
Yeah,
but yeah, I think this secret is that's a crazy part about this is that there's been a lot of teams that got really hot up leading up to TI and almost cursed themselves by being like so hot throughout the season that it was almost destined not to work out at that TI itself.
Like I think, like if you think about TI, I don't know if there's that many teams that were like super hot for like most of the months running into TI and then actually won it. Who did it? Alliance?
Yeah.
Like I think that's it.
Alliance. There's an argument to be made about potentially Wings.
Wings was like one event. Maybe
two. Yeah, I wouldn't make that argument either. But I'm just
like they were a dark horse. They were not OG or Virtus Pro or Liquid.
I'm pretty sure the only team that ever was super hot going into an event and was also undoubtedly the favorite and then also won was Alliance.
Yeah, like I'm not even sure you could say like Liquid is kind of similar to Wings. Like they won like 1 or 2 events before going in. Like yeah, I think it's really rare for like a team to do that. So if Puppy does do that, then that's like in addition to his resume for greatest of all time leader.
For sure, because it is a huge accomplishment to be able to sustain success for an entire season, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Because like we've been mentioning with Liquid, there is a wear out phase where you just everybody has, and especially because look, Secret technically didn't even have to play this major. Technically, they don't even have to play the next major. They've already qualified after 3 majors.
Yeah.
But they keep doing it, and if they then win TI on top, that'd be sick. Mm-hmm. Because they'd be defying a lot of like odds and like again all these curses and all these whatevers.
Yeah.
But again, that's a discussion to be had on another day if they actually win. But right now, undoubtedly best team in the world. Zai best offlane in the world.
Puppy's like one of the best rafters in the world. So
Yeah, well, which is funny though because when Secret loses, more often than not, it is because Puppy outdrafts himself.
yeah, no, dude.
I have so much respect for the guy, but so often he outdrafts himself.
You know that fucking meme, that old one's like, I don't ban Sniper because I'm Puppy and I'm cool. Haha,
Yes,
haha. That's
yes.
literally like Puppy's like greatest strength and greatest weakness.
That's literally why they lost or that I mean exactly that's one of his biggest weaknesses, but also one of his biggest strengths, right? That's why they won that infamous game versus or that famous game versus IG with the play because they decided not to bend the Naga.
Mm-hmm.
But they also what nobody talks about though is that they also lost because of that in the finals.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, we can beat them because we have this, and then IG was like, but we can beat that with this.
I mean,
How about now?
It's just like, listen, all the fucking leaders have like some weird weakness in them. Like Xiaoweight's inevitable ability to retire. Puppy wants to prove himself to be the coolest man alive. I think Kuroki's weakness is like, actually I don't know what Kuroki's weakness is because his tenure as leader has been pretty short, to be honest. But I'm sure he has a weakness. Like they all do. So.
I mean, if you, yeah, I guess the thing with him as a weakness, or with him, with him, or with pointing out a weakness against him is like we haven't really seen Liquid like burn down, right?
Yeah.
When they failed, it's usually been a little bit with Grace too, and you could argue there's not no clear like drafting issue. There's no like clear like instruction or tactical issue. It's usually just like people failing across the board. It's like, oh, like what just as a team doesn't work. You haven't really seen the structure fail where it's like, oh, clearly they had the wrong strategy or whatever. No, it's usually been like the team as a whole just failed. So I'm pretty sure we're gonna get to that point though where we're like, this is a classic Kuro. Or maybe we won't. Who knows? But
maybe he's actually the truly greatest leader.
Or maybe he'll just retire before. He'll just retire before we can see it.
I don't think he'll retire, but we'll see.
I don't think he will retire either. He's too hungry.
Yeah. All right. I think about it covers it for this episode.
Yeah.
We'll probably save the last topic for some other time when it's more relevant. So
I look forward to that.
All right. Well, you got any last shout outs you want to make?
No. It was a lot of fun. Look forward to the next major. Qualifier already beginning. I guess this is also a topic for another time, but this schedule is stupid as fuck.
Yeah, it's always been stupid.
Teams just got back from Paris. Guess what? Play a major qualifiers in a day and a half.
Yeah, like I think, like if Valve wants my advice, I think they actually have to cut one of the majors, and then use that major time to like create breaks between the majors and qualifiers and shit.
Yeah,
I think it's the only way it's gonna work.
I don't know why they think 5 is a magical number, but
like I think
especially because if the same teams keep placing top 4, that totally dilutes the amount of points you need, or that rather not dilutes it, but it skews with the whole system.
Yeah.
Because now you just need one miracle top 6 run or whatever, and then suddenly you're at TI.
Yeah, like I do it like I do 4, and then I take out the one near Chinese New Year's, the one they always do. Yeah. I don't know why they do that.
That's about right.
But all right, that about covers it. Shout outs to Complexity for building their new headquarters. That'll be my shout out. See you guys later.